Hello guys and welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to do a 24-hour reading challenge to see how many series can I finish within this 24 hours. I have been wanting to finish a series that I'm in the middle of for a very long time, but to be honest I just don't really have the motivation to actually pick up and continue these series, which is why I'm hoping that doing this 24-hour reading challenge will actually push me to finally finish them. But the first book that I'm going to be reading is The Last of August, which this is like a Sherlock Holmes kind of book. One of the characters, Charlotte Holmes, she's basically a relative to Sherlock Holmes. I can't remember specifically how they're related, but this is the second book in the series. So there are 3 more books that I have to read before I finish this series, so hopefully I like it. Anyways, let's start the reading challenge. So I am 22% into the book, and honestly I don't really know if I'm liking it so far. I just feel like the writing is so weird. It's basically in first person, but it's written in past tense, so it's like he's recounting the story by writing it in a diary or something like that. But the writing, just like, I don't know why, I just don't like it. And so far I feel like a majority of this book is just Charlotte and Jamie kind of just arguing because he likes her and he's like, she likes me as well, but then their relationship is very like complicated and I am just not interested in that. So I don't really know if I want to continue reading this book or what. It's really difficult because I swear I am worried that I'm going to be DNFing all the books that I read in this video. But I think I'm just going to leave this book for now and just see how I feel. It's so complicated, okay, because I'm also reading The Ministry of Time for another video, but even with this book I'm kind of like, do I even want to read it? But I also don't know if I want to DNF it. Either way, I chose to read Rebel by Marie Lu, which this is, I think, I don't know if this is like a sequel or like whatever it is. This is the 4th book in the Legend series, and I read this series a long time ago. Like, I don't even remember. But apparently there's a 4th book. So I was like, should I read it? So I read the first book, Legend, in 2017, and Rebel came out in 2019. So I'm very late to the game. Like, I could have read this book earlier, but I just waited for such a long time. I don't really know why. I think because I remember the last book came out and then I thought that the last book was the last book, and then it turns out another book came out, and then I probably never ended up borrowing it from the library or something because they probably didn't have it in the library. But anyways, I'm gonna read Rebel because it is the last book in the Legend series, and by reading this book I will be completing the series, and then I will see later on if I want to continue on with The Last of August. Reading a little more of Rebel, I am actually really enjoying it. Despite me not really remembering what happens in the first 3 books, like I remember a smidge, but not that much, and I definitely think that if I read them one after each other, it would definitely be better. But Rebel is about Daniels, who is the main character in the first trilogy, who was also named Day. He's basically like the hero figure because this is a dystopian series. So this one in particular is about his brother Eden, and as of right now we get both Eden and Daniel's point of view, but I don't know if that will be like consistent throughout the book. But I am really enjoying it. I feel like I should maybe reread the series someday just because of the nostalgia factor it gives me. Kindle's telling me I have 4 hours and 22 minutes left to read. So I'm 67% into Rebel, and not gonna lie, I feel a little bit annoyed because a lot of it is focused on the romance, which I totally understand because from what happened in the 3rd book, which I do remember the ending and I remember thinking that the ending was devastating, so the 4th book was very much needed. However, this book is really focused on the romance rather than the whole dystopian element, which I think is more interesting than the romance. I don't know, the romance is just kind of annoying as of right now because I feel like it's the main focus when I would rather have the dystopian side the main focus and the romance kind of just like in the background. But I do feel like in the end it's gonna be a happy ending, hopefully, for all the characters. So that I am, you know, happy about. I will say, however, I'm getting like a little bit bored. I was like, I'm gonna finish this book and everything, but now that I'm somewhat close to the ending, I'm getting a bit bored of the book, so I don't really know if I want to take a break and read another book. I don't know if I want to read The Last of August. I have a feeling that I'm going to end up DNFing it. So if I don't end up finishing Rebel right now, I think that the next book I want to read is Husband Material. And let me check when I read the first book. Okay, so the series is called London Calling. The first book is Boyfriend Material, and I read the first book in 2021, so in my opinion that isn't bad. And the second book came out in 2022. I finally finished my first series, but before that I wanted to show you guys something cute. Basically, my auntie is very talented in crocheting, and she basically made me a bunch of bookmarks, and they are so cute. It's really sad that I don't read physical books anymore. Hopefully I'm gonna unpack my bookshelf and start rereading some of my favorite series. I am honestly very scared because these books have been in boxes for like a year and they've been in the garage, so I'm really scared that they are either cockroaches, that they're in a really bad state, or they've been eaten. So honestly, I'm terrified to open those boxes, but as of right now I'm just waiting to get another shelf so that I could actually put my books on a shelf. Otherwise I don't want to open it. But these are basically the bookmarks that my auntie made, because like, when I was younger I was very much obsessed with bookmarks, which I will show you guys later on once I unbox everything. But basically, my auntie made a bunch of this like crocheted bookmarks. So we have like My Melody, Cinnamon Roll, Doll thingy, and they are so cute. We also have this rat. It's so funny, but it's so cute. We also have this one. So this is like a chick, a bear, and this one is, I forgot what the name is, but the BT21 RM's toy. The one that is my favorite, if I'm being honest, is this mermaid one. And it's so cute because literally like her hair is so pretty. She has bangs and everything and literally curly hair. But as I mentioned, finally finished reading my first series, which is Rebel. Yay! If I'm being honest, I feel like this was a perfect book for being the last book in a series, if that makes sense, especially because of the way that the book ended. You know that you needed this book to kind of feel better about the series overall. Otherwise I would have been devastated. However, I think because it's been years since I've read the first trilogy, I guess, the book doesn't impact me as much as it would have if I read it during the time where the series was being released. So because of that, I enjoyed it, but not gonna lie, I felt kind of impatient because the whole entire book was actually about the romance rather than the dystopian aspects. And I don't know, it was a little bit annoying because it really was just focused on the, I guess, rebuilding of the romance and just like the relationship between the two brothers, which, yeah, I don't know. I just personally think that it kind of in a way wasn't well written. I don't know how to explain it, but I just feel like with both of the relationships, even though I knew like the main relationship, I just feel like I could honestly, like, I could not care less about them. So yeah, right now I'm gonna be reading Husband Material. I don't really remember what it's about though, but from the cover, I think it's set in London. British boyfriend. So I am halfway through Husband Material, and if I'm being honest, I absolutely hate it, which I will tell you why once I finish it. And yes, I'm actually gonna read it because I DNF'd like 2 books in a row now. Kind of felt bad, and I'm already halfway through, so why not read it? But I think I want to take a break from that book because I honestly can't stand it right now, and I want to read Emily Wiles, what is it called? 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐡's Compendium of Lost Tales. So I read the books as it was released, so I do obviously remember what they're about. I really liked the first book. I remember thinking that it had like a really cozy vibe. I liked the romance or confession scene. The ending felt like a fever dream, but I really enjoyed it. And then I think with the second book, because I had really high expectations for it, I wanted more out of it and I thought it was going to be really good. But then when I read it, I was like, I don't know if this really lived up to my expectations, and as this is the last book, I'm hoping that it's good. So I will not lie, okay, I took a little break from reading, and I don't know if it was because of husband material or what, but I just did not want to read. Like, I did not want to pick up a book. So for the longest time I just stopped reading because obviously I didn't want to force myself, but I finally started reading 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐡's Compendium of Lost Tales, and right now I'm through the halfway point. I'm quite enjoying it so far. I just really like the kind of cozy, like whimsical vibe of the book. I do like as well that the plot, it's like pretty slow. Like, I don't know why, I just like the way that it is written. I'm telling you, it's like that magical kind of like you're in a dream vibe. Like, the writing is so good and it matches really well with what the story is about. I finished reading 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐡's Compendium of Lost Tales and I absolutely loved this book. Everyone says that they want a Rhys-san or a Rhys-san, however you pronounce his name, but I want a Wendell, because imagine a fairy king who adores you so much that his face lights up every single time he sees you, and he calls Emily my M. He literally gives her everything she wants without him even asking her, and he always needs confirmation that she actually likes him because he loves her so much that he wants to reassure himself to make sure that she's happy with him and that she actually loves him. And I love the whole part where he falls first and she doesn't even realize that he's in love with him, and just like the interactions. Oh my god, I just love Wendell because I feel like he's so charismatic, especially because his character to Emily seems more playful, I guess, but in terms of like being a kin, I feel like he does tend to get a little bit scary because obviously he's a fae. But whenever he's around Emily, he doesn't show that kind of side to her. I prefer that over those broody kind of male characters. I love Emily as well. I don't know, I just love the way that she is written because she is a mortal, and I love how she doesn't have like special powers or special skills that develops throughout the book. She is mortal through and through, but she has so much conviction and she really just follows her own kind of instincts without, you know, the permission of other people such as Wendell. So I love how her being a mortal kind of solves like everything within this fairy world, and literally just the dynamic between Wendell and Emily is just, it's so good. It's kind of the situation where, you know, Emily's a lot stronger than Wendell and Wendell will just like literally follow her wherever she goes, and even though he's a kin, like I feel like Emily has more control over him. I did end up DNFing husband material, and let me go on a rant, okay, because I need to talk about this book. Basically, husband material, we have the sequel obviously to boyfriend material, so it's about Lucien and Oliver after them getting together at the end of the first book. But this book is literally so stupid because we have 3 weddings that the main character is attending, and I'm just like, what even is this? Like, this whole plot and storyline is so stupid because we barely get anything of Lucien and Oliver. We literally just get the weddings of other people in their lives. Also, Oliver literally doesn't even show up in the book. Like, he's there, but I feel like most of the time Lucien kind of just like sends him on errands, or like they don't even really interact that much because they're both so busy. And then Lucien proposes to Oliver because I think he has this whole feeling of, oh, everyone else around me is getting married, so I should get married as well. But then the ending, look, I didn't read the ending, I stopped halfway through, but I like read ahead and I was like, what even is this? Like, the whole book leading up to this ending is honestly so useless. And if you guys don't want to hear spoilers, skip to this timestamp. But basically in the ending, what happens is that Lucien proposes to Oliver, right? They're about to get married. Turns out neither of them actually want to get married to each other. So they both thought that they were going to stand up the other at the altar, if that makes sense. Either one of them weren't going to show up at the altar, and then they have this huge fight, and then it turns out that both of them didn't even want to get married to each other. And it's not because they don't love each other. It's just because they don't want like a traditional relationship or something like that, and I think all of it is like, we don't need to get married to show our love or something like that. Look, I don't know if that's entirely correct because, as I mentioned, I haven't like read the ending properly, but that's kind of what the main gist of it is from what I read, and I was kind of like, why would you even make this whole book? Like, this is an example of a book that does not need a sequel, okay? And I feel like the writing as well, it was so obnoxious. Like, all the characters were so annoying, and I can't remember if I felt the same way when I read the first book, but I hate it when authors in romance books try to write characters who are like quirky and eccentric, but they end up just being like very obnoxious and annoying. So yeah, after I took a break from that book and read 𝐸_WILD, I was like, wow, 𝐸_WILD is so good, so why am I wasting my time reading husband materials? So I just ended up DNFing the book. But yeah, I didn't want to finish it so I can go like on a full-on rant and talk about my thoughts when I have finished the book, but I just gave up. The next book that I'm going to be reading is The Damned, and I just started it, so I only read a little bit, but I do think that I'm gonna like this book. Fingers crossed. It gives me the vibe of books that I usually do like. I've started reading The Damned, and I'll be honest, I do not remember what happens in the first book, so going into this one I was a little bit confused, but it's about vampires. I am really intrigued to see where it goes because I'm nearly at the 100-page mark, but to be honest, I feel like I don't really know what's going on or where the plot is gonna go. However, some things I would like to point out is that it has multiple point of views, which I don't really like, especially because I just don't like how we're flip-flopping between different characters and kind of like different plots, and I feel like it's hard to connect with characters when they have multiple point of views. However, as of right now, you know what, I think it's okay, and we have a situation where it's like this found family kind of thing, so getting the different point of views is interesting. I also don't like how there are random like French phrases, I think, and this annoys me so much when it comes to books, because why are you writing like random phrases of a different language and you don't even translate it? Like, they just say it in French. There's no translation of what the phrase actually is, so I'm just like sitting there and I'm like, I don't speak French, so I don't know what this means, and I feel like it gets thrown in a lot. So half of the time I'm just reading and there's like random French words and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. And I feel like that also takes away from the character and their communication. But yeah, 20% in. I am enjoying it. I love the feel of like the vampire kind of nostalgic fantasy settings. I'm intrigued to see where it goes from where the first book ended and the whole like romance, where you also have a bunch of characters who I will hopefully learn more of, because I feel like obviously the vampires, they're very flawed and their morality is always questioned, so I'm excited to read about that. I finished reading The Damned, and if I'm being honest, like, it was just an okay book. They had this whole trope which I really like because it creates a lot of angst. However, I just feel like it lasted for like 1 minute and then all the angst disappeared. Like, the angst lasted for like maybe like a chapter and then it was gone after that, and that made me really disappointed because I love angst in books, and I feel like certain scenes were cut out. There was this whole scene where I wanted to see the reaction of the other person because this book does have multiple point of views, but I swear it literally got like ignored. We went to like another scene and it's like, oh, they had this like whole scene about the two romantic leads, and then I don't know, we got the guy's point of view and then it completely got like disregarded, and I wanted his like reaction to the whole thing. So I was really disappointed when we just ended up in another like plot. There was this whole thing happening in the ending that did make me feel very excited to read the next book. However, I heard that the series actually goes downhill after this, and that the next book is about the side characters in the first two books. So I think I am gonna start reading in another book and then I'll go back to the series and kind of just like go back and forth between the two series that I'm reading right now. So I'm gonna be reading Gemina. Let me talk about my history with the 𝐸_WILD Files series. So I read the first book, well, I tried reading it like ages ago because it was really popular, and I didn't like it because the way that it is written is so interesting. It's a sci-fi book. We have a bunch of like files and text messages and everything, so it was really hard for me to get into, but I made a video where I gave books that I DNF'd another try, and I ended up reading 𝐸_WILD. I ended up absolutely loving it, so I'm really excited to continue on with the series. 𝐸∐ is basically like a sci-fi world. We have these characters who live in these spaceships, and something happens where a virus spreads, so they kind of have to like evacuate onto another spaceship. We have these two characters and they ended up breaking up on the day that this whole event happens, and they get separated, and then they kind of just like make their way back to each other, messaging each other and everything. And I swear, like, there were certain parts of this book that was like so devastating, especially because this whole book is about like this virus that was spreading, and like obviously there's an expectation that a lot of people would die in this book, but the overall plot was so good. Like the ending, it was so good. So I'm really excited to read the next book. I'm just gonna say it right now. I'm scared. I am so scared of what's going to happen in this book, because 𝐸∐, I swear, like, the suspense, the tension really got to me, and I'm just at the beginning of the book and I am feeling like everything is gonna go downhill, that characters that I may have an attachment to may all die. Like, I have the sense, this is not a spoiler because I haven't read the book or anything, but I'm telling you, I have a bad feeling that something is gonna go wrong, and I'm scared to progress. Guys, I cannot even. At this point, I feel like my reaction itself is a spoiler, so sorry for that, but I don't do well with stories like this, okay? I do not do well with stories like this. I finally finished reading Gemina. It did take me a while to read because I feel like I'm still in some sort of slump. So yeah, I think also because of the way that it was written, it did take me a while to kind of understand it. But I feel like that's why it's so interesting. And oh my god, this book honestly was so wild. There's a lot of like high tension, high suspense going on because there's just like a lot of action. It's just like, oh, it is so good. So I definitely recommend reading it because the way that it is written is just so unique, and there's so many like plot twists and surprising scenes. I will say, just be aware that there is like a lot of death in this book. It's kind of like a zombie apocalypse in a way, that makes sense. Don't have a lot of expectations for the characters is basically what I'm saying, but I am excited to read the last book. I'm not gonna read it just yet because I feel like I need a little break from the book, especially because of what I just read. So I've decided to continue on with the Beautiful series, so I'm gonna be reading The Righteousness, which comes after The Damned. I don't really know how excited I am to read this book because, as I mentioned, I do feel like I'm in some sort of reading slump. I don't know, this month has just been like, honestly, it's been bad because I just haven't had the urge to read, but I just don't want to like force myself to read. We have around like 2 more hours left, so I don't think that I'm gonna be able to finish another book in this video, but I'm gonna try and read as much of The Righteousness as I can. Righteous? Is it Righteousness? It's called The Righteous. I have finally reached 24 hours, which means that this challenge is over. It's completed and I'm like, yes, finally. Anyways, I have read 42 of The Righteous, and to be honest, when I first started it I was kind of like, oh, this is a little bit boring, but now I'm kind of into it and I'm excited to read it. This book is based on Pippa, who is one of Celine's like best friends, and Audrey, who is also like a side character. So this story is focused on them, and basically Pippa is trying trying to find her best friend because her best friend goes missing, and then she goes with Arjun. It's this whole plot. Because this is the book, like, I don't want to get into it that much, but yeah, in the beginning I was a little bit like, this is kind of boring, but now we are getting this whole like fake marriage thing, especially because they're in the Fae world, which is obviously like really dangerous, and all the Fae there are really scary. I'm excited to read that because I feel like the chemistry between Pippa and Arjun is pretty good. Anyways, in this video I have dropped 2 series, which was Sherlock Holmes, and I also dropped husband material, or just like boyfriend material, London Calling, whatever the series is called. I just dropped that series. So close to finishing it though. I finished 2 series, which was Rebel and Emily Wilde, and I also progressed with 2 series, which is The Illuminated Files and The Beautiful. So with both Obsidian and The Beautiful series, I will hopefully finish it soon after I finish with this video. But yeah, that's basically all the series that I read in 24 hours. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!